All right, so Avery Mcdaldno is a game designer and super rad, awesome person who was generous enough to come out to Calgary and give a workshop on designing for empathy yesterday, which some of us were at, and it was really great. And now is going to give a keynote that I'm super excited about. So Avery designed the first role-playing game that I ever played, which is Ribbon Drive, which remains one of my favorite games, and one of the things that taught me that games, and particularly role-playing games, can be a really awesome space for exploring identity and self and emotions and other interactions with people and situations. And if any of you know what I do in my activism, a lot of it is around exploring issues of identity and orientation and history and kind of breaking down barriers to who we can be that get put up by the society that we're raised in. So Avery helped me in that process by writing Ribbon Drive, which is awesome. And yeah, so now she's going to give a keynote. That's also going to be awesome.
Okay, so as Tiffany mentioned, my name is Avery Alder Mcdaldno. I've been designing games for about 8 years, so that's a process that started in high school and kind of slowly, bit by bit, took over my life and is now kind of my full-time job. In addition to Ribbon Drive, I've put out a couple games, The Quiet Year, Monster Hearts, which people could browse right there. Yeah, so my work tends to circle around a couple of recurring themes: community, queerness, disillusionment, feelings, and apocalypse. I'm going to touch upon a couple of the games that I've written later. This talk mostly isn't about my own games, though. This is a talk about the fantastical and the absurd, and how these things can be catalysts for understanding ourselves and our myriad identities. I'm going to start hyperventilating in a minute because I'm kind of nervous, and then I'll probably get through that in a second.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, so this is primarily a talk about role-playing games and the way role-playing games can affect our lives. If you don't play a lot of role-playing games, I'll be interested to find out later what you got out of this. This keynote has a title. That title is We've Been Stranger Things. So there's a phrase that I learned earlier this year by way of Laverne Cox. When it was suggested that Laverne might be a role model for other trans women, she said that she preferred the term possibility model. The idea she was proposing, I think, was that we don't need more roles to live up to. We don't need more standards by which we must judge ourselves. Instead, we need possibilities. We need inspirations. We need more options, rather than more restrictions on what we see as our only options. When we shift from role models to possibility models, we're also shifting our focus from performing to being. We're talking about people who inspire us to be who we are. So I've been thinking about possibility models as they relate to role-playing and as they relate to games. And as they relate to just imagination practices in general. And I've been wondering, can we have possibility models that defy possibility? That exist only in myth, in imaginary spaces, in play pretend and in make-believe? Can we have impossibility models? There's a little piece of writing I want to share with you. It was written by someone named Gauche Sinister. It's found on a blog called Terror Incognita. It's a post about girl monsters. I want to see more girl monsters. Girl giants, girl dragons, hulks and trolls, Skyla and Hydra, girl monsters who are huge and whole, teeth and plush fur and long muscled tails, heads enough to see you anywhere, gleaming green or brown. But girl monsters are usually zombies or vampires, pale and thin, bleeding or dead. Not Lady Lazarus, not a phoenix from the ash. I want to see how you get strong without being broken first. Get strong and stay strong. Get big, and then bigger. And rather than unpacking that quote at all, I kind of just want to skip ahead and share another one. This is from Elena Sims, who also goes by the name Little Light. It's an excerpt from one of my favorite pieces of writing ever. It's a manifesto about monstrosity and about claiming monstrosity and claiming a feminism of the monstrous. That is this body. That is this me. That is the voice that says, get your names off my parts and your hands off them too. That says, stop colonizing my reality and telling me what I mean without listening to a word I say. What I say might be in a language incomprehensible, but there is a time for that, and it is right now. Because this is a monster's creed. It is for the cobbled together, the sewn up, the grafted on. It is for the golden, the under the earth, the foreign, the travels by night, the filthy ship-sinking, cave-dwelling, bone-crackling gorgeousness that says, hell no, I am not tidy. I am not easy. I am not what you suppose me to be, and until you listen to my voice and look me in my eyes, I will cling fast to this life, no matter how far you drive me, how deep, with how many torches and pitchforks, biting back the whole way down. I will not give you my suicide. I will not give you my surrender. This is for the Lilum, because you forget that the next part of your co-opted icon parts ways with Adam and goes her own way is, and she begat monsters, and she becomes terrifying. This is for the Gorgons, and the vampires and the chimeras, for Cybele and Baba Yaga, Hel and Ashtoreth, for Lamia and Skyla, for Kali. This is for all of them with teeth. It is time to look the monstrous in the eye. It is time. It is time to say that we are beautiful in our fierceness and that we are our own. We are not the rejected of what we can never be. We are what we were meant to be. We are not pieces of wholes thrown together incorrectly. We are not mistakes. We are not inferior knockoffs of someone else. If our monstrousness is frightening, then it is time we bare our teeth and draw that fear close to us and stop being so afraid of our own fearsomeness that we fear everyone and everything else right back. You should find the rest of that piece and read it because it's all really, really good.
Read everything.
Yeah, the piece is called The Seam of Skin and Scales, and it's by Elena Sims.
For those who are wondering, the actual blog is called Taking Steps. It's a blogspot blog.
Taking Steps, not blogspot.com.
If I'd known, I'd have actually brought them cards with URL on it to toss around.
So, to move forward from that quote, the world we live in likes to tell us that some of us are not powerful or worthy. It leaps at every opportunity and advantage to tell us this. Speaking as a queer person, a trans person, and a depressed person, it's easy to buy into the paradigm that you are not powerful or worthy. When you see others succeeding by metrics that you fail at, when you see others exercising forms of power that you don't have access to, it's easy to conclude that your own self-actualization is beyond reach, that it is impossible. If we're already internalizing impossibility, if we're already letting impossibility define us, then why not choose the impossibilities? The impossibilities where we are strong beyond measure, where our wounds heal overnight, where we can change forms as needed. In the early days of 2011, I read a game called Teen Witch. To play, you become a teenage girl who's a witch. You steal spell components from your spice cupboard and your junk drawer and your mom's purse, that sort of thing, and then you go off and you teach yourself magic. It's meant to be played with sincerity and belief. There's a passage that reads, "There is an important truth about the world that must be understood and trusted if this game is to work. That something is a fiction doesn't make it any less real." I think it's important to sincerely imagine impossible things, to develop empathy towards impossible creatures, to practice being impossible. When we learn to see ourselves in the fantastical, in the impossible, in the absurd, when we construct new lenses by which to understand our own power and identities, we also put forward a challenge to the world around us. We challenge the reigning paradigms about what is possible, about what power looks like and who is entitled to claim it. We challenge the notion that difference is shameful. We challenge the notion that our bodies, our lives, or our hearts are shameful. When we conceptualize ourselves, our frail wrists, our awkwardly broad shoulders, our shared custodies, the places where we broke from traditions that didn't hold space from us, whatever it might be, when we conceptualize ourselves, we're usually comparing ourselves against dominant narratives designed to minimize our accomplishments and our worth. The complicated thing about living within capitalism, about living within patriarchy, all of it, is that even our possibility models are complicit in the systems that do harm to us. To imagine our power coming from outside of capitalism or outside of patriarchy, we also need to imagine it coming from outside of what currently seems possible, what currently seems plausible, what seems real-worldly. Ghosts, dragons, fairies, elves, stars speaking to one another through dust and empty space, beings that only get stronger the more you cut them into pieces, Yeti. If a story hurts us to tell, we should stop telling it. And if a story affirms our feelings and our strengths and our identities, if a story heals us, then we owe it to ourselves to remember that story, to tell it often, to believe in its words, even if those words are foolish, even if those words are impossible. In 2013, I wrote another game. It was called Brave Sparrow. I'm only supposed to talk about it among trusted people, people who I know will understand and who will not be scornful. I'm just going to take a leap of faith and talk to you all about that. So Brave Sparrow opens with the following paragraphs. How long have you felt it? Your fingers filled with dull ache whenever you use them for too long. Your shoulder blades tickling with the sensation of phantom limbs. That sense that you're swimming in a body too big to make use of. The confusion of being. You weren't meant to walk among humans, were you? Maybe you've just shrugged it off, assuring yourself that everyone feels this way sometimes. Maybe you've been going crazy for the answer. There is no easy way to doubt your body, and there's no comfortable way to fall apart. But the feeling is getting clearer. You dream about flying either all of the time or never at all. You hate depending on your legs for movement. You don't trust like you used to. You crave beauty like you'll die without it. You're ready to fly. You're a sparrow, brave and terrified. Brave Sparrow is similar to Teen Witch in that it demands that you, as the player, on at least some level believe in it. That you dwell on the idea and ask yourself, really, really ask yourself, am I maybe a sparrow trapped in a human body? The game is played in parallel with your real life, and so everything you do throughout your day is also part of play. When you play Brave Sparrow, you train. You train yourself to witness quiet beauty, to act with bravery, and to gather feathers. Train well and train sincerely, and someday you'll be able to regrow your wings. It's an instruction manual for adopting your true form. I wrote Brave Sparrow as I was coming to terms with gender queerness, well before I'd started to contend with the fact that I might, impossibly, be a woman. I wrote Brave Sparrow not really knowing what the sparrow stood for, just that I needed to become one. The text ends with the following words. You might not be a sparrow. It is healthy to let your doubt linger, even as you believe with every ounce of your being, even as your conviction is hardened through action. You might not be destined for sky and wind. There's no shame in proving a theory wrong. What is important is that you don't quit or give up. Continue believing and attempting until you either complete your wings or you realize what non-sparrow creature you are. Either way, you will emerge observant and thoughtful and courageous. I believe in you. We deserve stories that celebrate our differences. We deserve stories that give us new frameworks for understanding ourselves and our experiences. We deserve stories that actively create more space in the world for us. Sometimes those stories will be absurd or fantastical. Sometimes the space that those stories create will be otherworldly. Believing in those stories can be scary and difficult. It can seem like folly, or maybe we don't know how to do it, or it can seem like a recipe for broken hearts. But when we encounter a story that heals us, we owe it to ourselves to remember it, to tell it often, and to believe in it. I think games are important. Role-playing games, but also all types of games. They allow us to redefine ourselves as powerful actors. They allow us to see ourselves differently and in different roles. They invite us to sincerely believe in the fantastical, to take it seriously and consider it, even if just for an hour or two. In a past talk, I referred to games as being training for becoming a better human. And later, someone responded jovially that he wasn't sure how pretending to be an elf would make him a better human. But I actually sincerely believe that it does. When we play, when we engage with games sincerely, with open hearts, when we imagine ourselves differently, when we imagine ourselves in new situations, we grow. We become a tiny bit bigger. We develop empathy. We establish new touchstones that we can self-conceptualize ourselves against. The tricky part is figuring out what to carry forward from those games, from those stories, and from those imaginary spaces. When we identify with a character, whether in a game, or in a novel, or in a daydream, what next? Unfortunately, I'm not sure I have answers for anybody but myself, other than this. We're here today because we like games, and because we play games. That probably means we're good at play. And play doesn't need to be a practice that we limit to games, that we pack tidily back up into its box at the end of an evening. We can carry play into our daily lives, into our identities, into the conversations we have late at night with our most trusted friends. We can bring the full weight of our imaginations to bear as we make choices about how we navigate the world. We can call ourselves Gorgons. We can become Gorgons. We can become any damn thing we need to be. We can call upon mythic forces when we are lonely, when we are scared, when we are lost. We can imagine helpful fae guiding us home. We can really and truly believe that helpful fae are guiding us home. We can giggle about how silly that idea sounds. We can keep believing it in any ways if we want to. We live in a world that isn't always fair to us. That world likes to divide power unevenly, and to tell some people that they are ugly, or worthless, or bad. The world has tons of those stories. I don't think we owe those stories anything. I think it's our right to replace those stories with better ones, ones that heal us, ones that invigorate us, ones that let us see ourselves, even if we need to giggle self-consciously as we do so. There's a quote from Junot Diaz that I wanted to share with you. Diaz is a Pulitzer-winning author and a brilliant speaker, and he's worth looking up if you haven't heard of him before. This quote is one coming from his mouth about racial and cultural identity specifically, and so I'm sort of cheating by recontextualizing it here. I hope that's okay. Anyways, it goes. You guys know about vampires? You know, vampires like that have no reflections in a mirror? There's this idea that monsters don't have reflections in a mirror. And what I've always thought isn't that monsters don't have reflections in a mirror. It's that if you want to make a human being into a monster, deny them, at the cultural level, any reflections of themselves. And growing up, I felt like a monster in some ways. I didn't see myself reflected at all. I was like, yo, is something wrong with me? That the whole society seems to think that people like me don't exist? And part of what inspired me was this deep desire that before I died, I would make a couple of mirrors. That I would make some mirrors so that kids like me might see themselves reflected back and might not feel so monstrous for it. I'm in love with that quote. Finding mirrors that let us see ourselves clearly, unwarped, it's super important. I want to add kind of a yes and clause to what Diaz is saying. When you're surrounded by a culture that insists upon your monstrosity, yes, mirrors to help you see yourself more clearly are really important. But you're also allowed to interject in those stories as they're being told to you, to redefine monstrosity on your own terms, to say, I am something stranger and more powerful than you have vocabulary for, actually. We need possibility models, which is what Junot's quote speaks to. I guess what I'm saying is that we shouldn't limit ourselves to only that which is possible. We deserve impossibility models too. We deserve stories that transcend and redefine the world around us. We deserve games and play and practices that help us make those stories together.